So we're gonna do student loans today, right?
Yeah, let's dive in. Let's talk about some student loans. Goodness knows enough of us have them hanging around like pets.
Absolutely. So kind of just wanted to jump in real quick with kind of there's some there's a lot going on with Biden and the student loan forgiveness, and there's been a kind of an issue with there's arguments back and forth about is this a good thing, bad thing, right? Um, but I kind of wanted to jump in because there's been arguments going on for about the last I don't know decade about is it even worth going to school? Um, and so there's kind of two arguments. One is it's very expensive, it's cost prohibitive kind of thing. Um, and schools, not everybody wants to go to college or trade school or anything like that, which is fine, which is great. But it's if you want to have certain jobs, you have to. I mean, if you want to be a doctor or a lawyer or you know. Even if you want to work in certain parts of construction, you want to be an architect or anything like that, you got to go to school. Um, so it is kind of a necessary thing. So back in 2015, there was a big argument about, well, we have too many people in school because you had 40% of the population was college graduates, but only like 25% of new jobs required any sort of degree. Um, that argument has kind of gone by the wayside because now here in 2022, only 47% of people have college degrees or some sort of degree, right? Trade school or whatnot. But 75% of new jobs require some sort of degree. So we don't have enough people going to school anymore.
So that actually makes me wonder something, and it's something I don't have an answer for, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway because I'm wondering if viewers have thoughts on this too. So now I wonder if that's because the types of jobs that are available now are different, or is it possible that more jobs are requiring degrees that did not before?
Yeah, because
off the top of your head, do you know if they provided that sort of information as they were kind of putting this out?
Yeah, so part of this, and we'll in the next video we'll get more to the history of this and why this happened. But yeah, so you take my job for example, financial planning advising, right? When I started this 10 years ago, you had to have, like, to do what I do now, you'd have to have at least 2 or 3 employees to help you do the scheduling, the math, the portfolios. I can do the work of all those people now on my computer, and I can do it faster. The bottom line is technology is just moving at a pace where machines are picking up a lot of the tasks, right? Now, you can say that's negative or positive. It is positive in a lot of ways. So, like, I always think of this as a great example. In the 80s, when the ATM came out, the automatic teller machine, pretty much everybody in America has used one at some point, I'm sure, or seen one. Initially, they thought, okay, yeah, that's going to get rid of all these teller jobs, right? What ended up happening, though, was it freed up all those tasks that tellers would normally do. And so all those people pretty much ended up getting promoted to sales positions or loan positions because the bank was doing so much more business. It didn't have to waste all this time and money doing those simple tasks anymore because the machine would do it. So there's a positive and a negative to machines, but the positive is that it can create jobs. The negative is that you have to be trained, right, or educated to do those jobs because it's no longer just a manual task. It's you have to be able to think and be creative. You have to be able to learn is probably the biggest thing, right? And that was the biggest thing I learned in college was how to learn. So the need for college graduates is gone up, and it's just going to go up as technology advances. There's no other way around it. We're going to need more computer engineers. We're going to need more humanities, students and researchers. We're going to need more finance people, nurses, doctors, everything. I mean, it's just as the machines advance, the people that run the machines have to advance to that level. So it's kind of a it's a race one way or the other. But that's kind of the argument for it. The other argument is the cost, which we're going to really talk about today. And college is very, very expensive, and loans can be very detrimental in a lot of ways. The way the student loan system works. Um, we'll get more into that in the next video, but yeah. So the thing to understand is that when you're going into this, you need to have a good sense of what you're doing, even if you're just going to college because you're trying to figure out what you want to do. Which when you're 18, I don't think that's fair to say, well, you should have already picked out a career and know why you're going to college and have a plan. It's like, no, you're 18. Your job should really just be to try to figure out what you want to do. figure
I,
out figure out who you are.
well, arguably, that's why people spend the first 2 years many times not doing much involved in a major, getting rid of a bunch of sort of general classes. And you need a certain amount of electives anyway, so it's not a bad setup in terms of the way colleges give youth the opportunity to sort of poke around at their interest before they have to be like really involved in a major.
Well, right, and I mean, most people switch majors like 3 or 4 times when they're in college, so it's not, because you're a kid, you don't know what you're doing, right? You're still trying to figure it out. I remember when I signed up as a business major, um, which is ironic because I did my master's in finance, but I didn't do any business classes. I did one business class, and I only did the first 20 minutes when I was an undergrad. I went to the class because you had to pick a major like business. Everybody picks business. So I went to the business class. I was there for 20 minutes, and I was like, screw this. I'm not doing this for 4 years. I literally
So,
got
Ramsey,
up and
you
just
were a
walked.
business major for 20 minutes.
For 20 minutes. I got up.
I've always known you had sort of a short attention span, but I didn't realize it was that bad, Duncan.
No, it was so boring. And so I got up, I walked out. I ran into this professor, an older guy, got to be in his like his 70s, big beard, looked like Santa Claus. And it was just like, this sucks. And da. And he's like, where are you going? And I said, I don't know. I was just in a business class and I don't want to do that. He's like, oh, well, I'm teaching a class. You want to come sit in my class? And I'm like, why not? And he taught political science. And I went and sat in his class, and I sat through the whole class, and I loved it. And after that class, I went and I changed my major to political science. And I did that for the whole time I was in college.
Well, in Duncan now, sort of loosely, we could say you're using that. We get a little bit of political science going on here on the show.
Well, that's the other thing about finance is there's a lot of politics involved. So especially when you talk about something like student loans, um, I will make the argument too that when you talk about the cost of it, college graduates on average, and I want to be careful about the word average, but they do make it more money, about $1 million more over their lifetime. So if you look at, okay, I took out 50,000 in loans, right, and I paid that back, and I ended up paying whatever 100,000 over whatever 20 or 30 years, but I made $1 million more. I mean, that you're net positive by a lot, by $800,000 or $900,000. So there is a benefit to that. Plus, if you want to have one of those kinds of jobs, you kind of have to suck it up. But
Well, let's also put in there. I just like playing devil's advocate, though. Now, again, you said we do have to be careful about the word average,
Yeah.
but one of the issues tends to be is, the average person does do that, but there are lots of different, types of majors that don't result in career paths that actually do that much better. So while that might be the average, there are plenty of people who end up with a lot of student loan debt that don't necessarily make those higher wages, or not very much higher than people without them.
Right.
So, these numbers, we have to consider that, it is personal finance and it's personal. So it kind of depends on what people turn out. Also, think about my field. I do multiple things for a living, but one of the things is I am a teacher, and teachers end up with a lot of student loan debt, and they end up with not such high paying career paths.
Yeah. Well, and I want to put a pivot flag in that too for everybody. So people that don't know, teachers, most teachers, you have to have a master's degree.
Right.
Um, so that's expensive because you have to go to grad school, and your average teacher starts out making what 35, if that, a year, 35,000. So, and they might top out at 60 or 70 at most. So, yeah, I mean, there's definitely an argument to be made for a lot of even these lower paying kind of jobs. I think we should pay teachers more and it should be better subsidized, but that's, a different argument. But even those kind of jobs, I mean, we should make college more accessible because right now, what do we have? We have a teacher shortage because these people are leaving because they're sick of it. There's no money. They're eating all this student loan debt and they can't survive. So,
I I personally have had the experience um, where there's been a teacher shortage and a hiring freeze simultaneously. Being in a shortage and a freeze all at the same time. I mean, what kind of a debacle is that? And that's quite a pickle to be in. And teachers that are within those systems are bailing out because it's really hard work and not enough. People like the pension, but they're working for such peanuts that they're like it's way too long before that dangling carrot pension is actually received. I've got these student loans dangling around my neck, and I need to do something that's going to make some money. So they bail out. People can't be hired back in, and it makes it even worse for the teachers. But I digress because I am a teacher, and I
well, yeah, and,
yeah,
and
that's an issue that means something to me.
yeah, we can get into like this later, but I mean, just when you talk about the millennials and the Gen Z kids and all that stuff, I mean, you're talking about kids that they've spent their entire adult lives in war and recession, um, and wages have not grown, yet they're three times more productive than the Gen Xers and the baby boomers. Um, so you're working harder, you're doing more, and getting paid a lot less,
Hmm.
and they can't figure out why they're having a problem filling jobs. The corporations know this, and they know it's an issue. Um, and there is pressure, and I think that's part of why this thing with Biden has gone through, and we'll jump into that. But let's talk about student loans and how they work. So, boys and girls, when you go to school, trade school, college, whatever, you have to go to what's called FAFSA. It's the free admissions federal student aid thing, whatever. But it's called FAFSA, FAFSA. And you apply for your student loan. And to do that, you've got to submit your taxes if you have any. If you're 18, you might not have had a job yet, but um, you have to supply your taxes and your parents' taxes. And that's any parent that has any sort of custody. So if your parents are divorced and they have custody, or joint custody or shared custody, you have to both their taxes. And if they're remarried, you have to get their spouse's taxes too, right? Um, just to apply for student loans. Then what they do is they plug that in. They figure, okay, this is your number, and the number is the amount we think you should be contributing to your own education. And then anything above that number for the cost of college, that's what we'll give you in student loans. Um, this is important to understand because if you're a poor kid, you're going to get the max student loans, right? If you're a rich kid, you're probably not going to get any, but mom and dad will probably pay for it. But if you're lower middle class, and maybe your parents are probably doing well or whatever, but they've gone through stuff. Maybe they went through a bankruptcy, maybe they went through a divorce, um, whatever it is, and they can't afford to do much. Now you're in a position where you're not getting a lot of student loans, and your expectation of what your parents are supposed to give you is not there. Or maybe your parents are dicks and they just don't think it's worth it. So now you're in a position where you have a huge
Or
deficit. Yeah.
they might be making a reasonable amount of money, but if they've got student loans hanging over their heads still, which happens really frequently, they might be worrying about making those payments and not really feeling able to be contributing to a college fund. So they really just might not be positioned to put in what FAFSA believes they should be able to put in.
Right. My point is that there's a huge flaw in the system there, where
Right.
it's the kids that grew up lower middle class that get kind of screwed just by the way these work. So for those kids, it's like mom and dad really have to either want to help you or you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know we knew people in college where it's like their parents were like, no, I don't want to submit my taxes anymore. And because of that, they couldn't get student loans. So the tax thing with your parents, just FYI, you have to do that till you're 24. But yeah, I know, unless you're emancipated from your parents.
Right. I want to throw my fun story in because this is gossip about me. I'll even, gossip about myself today. So I was not emancipated. That's one option. However, I mean, I guess maybe just school emancipated me, but I wasn't emancipated by any state or anything. I actually, I did two things. I moved from the state I went to high school into another state, and I did manage to get in-state tuition as an out-of-stater. And I'm going to throw this out there in case any of our viewers want to try to take advantage of this. If you find out the number of credits that when taken requires residency to be attached to you.
Yeah.
If you stay under that credit level, then you could be going as a part-timer without your residency actually considered. Right. And I did that for my first year. So it took me 5 years to get through college because my first year I took one class every term. Right. Because I could take 4 credits. I think it was once you got to 6 credits at the school that I was at.
Yeah.
It started counting residency. And I stayed under that for a year and then got in-state tuition, which lessened my student loan burden because I wasn't paying 3 times the amount. So there's a little tip. Yeah. But then another one is you have to have certain extenuating circumstances. But if you do, please, by all means, try to utilize them to better your position with regards to financial aid, because the circumstance in my world is a family member with a severe disability that requires a lot of medical and equipment needs, which are all very expensive. So there are manners in which you can challenge certain parts of financial aid, and the thing that we challenged was the parent contribution dollar amount, and we're able to get that basically removed and turned into zero within the formula. Now, that won't work for everybody, but if you are a person that has some sort of circumstance that maybe isn't so typical that creates these extra expenses that are ongoing, that's a possibility. And I have to say that put me in the position to get Pell Grants, and I got a little bit better of an aid situation because of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So your best friend, when you talk about student loans, is you should always go talk to the financial aid advisor at the school or even the local community college if you don't know what you're going to do or where you're going to go. They will talk to you, and they know they can help you. They'll give you more specifics based on your situation. Financial aid officer for the school, always talk to them. I've done this before with clients where if your kids are like 15 and you're divorced and you get along with your ex, all hypotheticals, right? But if that is the case, then what you can do is the parent that has the lowest income, right? You sign over full custody to them. Right. I mean, you're still going to see your kid and all that as long as you agree and everybody's cool, right? It's not like
you may not actually change whatever the time arrangement is, but you might change if you've got a good relationship, you might change the sort of legal leading of the custody situation.
Right. So like let's say we were married, we had a kid, and I made less money. It would make sense at 15 for you to sign full custody over to me, because then when the kid applies for college for FAFSA, they don't have to report you and your taxes. They only have to report mine because I have full custody. You don't have custody legally. You can't really get away with that if they're 16 or 17, but at 15, you do that, and it's been a couple of years, then yeah, FAFSA will, usually ignore it. So you do that, and you get your student loans, and why don't you talk about the different types of student loans?
Yeah, so let's just cover this real quick. It probably doesn't need a whole lot of time, but when you get that lovely letter,
Mhm.
hopefully it says Pell Grant on it if you're in that category, because that's free money. But
Yeah,
you're probably going to have something else on it,
real
which are
quick,
the student loans.
Pell Grants only apply if you and your parents, your total taxes combined are less than 60,000 a year. So,
It's true.
but
It's
yeah,
true.
they'll give you like 6 or 7,000 a year. It's almost 7. Yeah. So
Yeah. It's pretty good if you're within that category.
yeah,
Even if you are within that category, you're probably still going to have some loans offered to you,
you're gonna have a
and
lot of
those
loans. Yeah.
loans fall into a couple of categories. We have subsidized and unsubsidized loans. So you want the subsidized ones first and foremost. Now, a subsidized loan,
Mhm.
the interest gets paid by the education department while you're in school. So
Right.
from the minute the loan is put out to you, the interest is being taken care of for you
Mhm.
rather than, capitalizing and growing while you're in school.
Right.
So that's a huge advantage. Of course, that's while you're enrolled at least half time. I believe you have to be enrolled half time. So that doesn't apply if you're maybe only taking one class or such. Now, an unsubsidized loan
Mhm.
is a loan where the government doesn't take care of the interest for you, and basically as soon as they disperse it, the clock starts running on your interest. So
Right.
the interest starts accruing right off the bat.
Right.
So this means, if you take 4 years to get this 4-year degree, you've already been accruing interest for 4 years,
Mhm.
plus however long it takes you after that to get a job before you start paying them back.
Right.
So
Right.
the amount that you've taken has grown significantly during your time in school if your loans are unsubsidized.
Right.
Now, just to throw that out there, though, you do always have the option of making those interest payments while you're in school.
Mhm.
I wish I had done more of that. I did do that sometimes when I
Yeah.
would get that notice in the mail that you can do that. I was like, oh, that's kind of a good idea. And I'd send a check sometimes when I could, but I was a college student. How often could I send
Right. Right.
a mathematics student? It might have only been $200 or whatever, but like an extra $200 when you're in
Well,
college and trying to like put yourself through that's kind of a lot.
well, right. I
But
mean,
it is an option, and it's a good thing for parents to think about if you didn't really have the cash to be putting your kid through college. If you're in a category where mostly it just got unsubsidized because of where your income levels lie,
mhm.
maybe one of the favors you do for your kid, if you can afford it, is like at least write the checks to take care of the interest as it's accruing, so that it doesn't, accumulate upward.
Mhm.
That's just food for thought right there.
Mhm.
I think it would have been great had I been able to write more checks, or had my parents been positioned to be able to do that. At least
Yeah.
save a little on the interest.
Yeah. So yeah, the neat thing too is subsidized or unsubsidized. They're called Stafford loans, or the federal
Mm-hmm.
loans. Those are the ones you
Oh,
want.
Duncan.
Yeah.
Duncan. So what about the parent, like the plus loans and
Yes.
graduate loans?
So
Let's talk
yeah.
about that.
So with those loans, well, so for the Stafford, just FYI, you don't have to start doing a payment or a payment agreement with them until 6 months after you leave school. That's so just so everybody
That
is.
gives you time to get a job.
Yeah,
I
ideally.
think the point is they hope you have a job by then.
Yeah, but you can also do hardship and stuff like that if you can't pay it, and they'll work with you. However, they will start accruing interest after that 6 months if they're subsidized. If they're unsubsidized, they're accruing all the way. That has actually changed though, and we're going to get to that in a second. But with the plus loans, so if you're in school and you don't have enough money, your parents can take out a loan. It's called a parent plus loan. The way that works is mom, dad, whoever has custody can take out a loan for you to pay for your school. They can also take it out and just keep it themselves if they want to do that for whatever reason. and they're cheap, which is nice. But the thing about it is they owe that money back. It's not on the student at all. So if they take that loan out, it's them solely. The student has nothing to do with it. When you're a graduate student, that's all you really get is plus loans from the feds. And so when you're a graduate student, you have to sign out a plus loan, and those are all unsubsidized, parent or graduate student. Um, and so, yeah, graduate students pretty much take just plus loans, and it eats away at your soul every time you have to sign one of those checks. Especially since I did my graduate degree at a private nonprofit school, so yeah, it was a lot of money every time I had to sign that document. So, um, not saying it wasn't worth it; it was totally worth it, but just a lot of cash. Um, the other neat thing is, like, if you go to grad school, most grad schools, just FYI for people, the cost of your graduate education is usually less than what it actually costs. Usually alumni pick up a lot of your bill. So you might borrow $90,000 to go to graduate school, but the actual cost of it was probably closer to 150. But alumni pick a lot of that up. So colleges don't make a lot of money on graduate students. They make it most on undergrads and alumni support. Just FYI for
That
the
makes a little bit
kids.
of sense, because if you think about it, your average graduate seminar, at least the ones that I was in, were much smaller, like smaller number of students. Like,
Yeah.
student to professor ratio is considerably smaller in grad school than it was in undergrad.
Yeah.
So if you think about just the dollars and cents involved in that, it makes a lot of sense already.
Well, yeah, and I mean, when I did the finance program, like the nursing program was big at the school I was at, the computer engineering and the MBA, the Master's in Business Administration, was big. So yeah, the finance program, though, there was only ever like 11 of us. Those were the only seats they had, because they have to have a professor that oversees each student when you're a graduate student. So it's a whole different game. Anyway, with the loan situation, that's how that works. The other thing to talk about is private loans. If yeah, because this happens, if you can't get enough loans, you might have to take a private loan. Private loans are going to be higher interest rates, so they're more expensive. Here's the deal, though. So let's say you take a private loan, especially if you're 18. You probably don't have credit, right? Or you at least don't have a credit score that they'll give you that kind of loan. So they're going to ask for a cosigner. So, mom, dad, aunt, uncle, whoever, somebody's going to have to cosign with you, right? Now, the thing about that is if you make 12 payments in a row, when those are all unsubsidized, by the way, you have to pay, interest starts accruing immediately. But if you pay 12 payments in a row on those kinds of private loans, you can then usually release the cosigner on most private loans. You have to check, but on most private loans you can do that.
So that definitely is worth checking.
Yeah. So here's the deal. So let's say you make $150,000 a year, but you just started making that. You just hit your stride, and little Timmy, Susie, whatever, is 18. They're going to college, and your expected contribution is a lot higher than you thought, and they're not getting that much, and you don't have the money. You don't have that $10,000 to give them, right, to go to school. You can sign the private loan, and if you do it reasonably speaking, let me pull my calculator here real quick. So if you took out, let's say, 10,000, we'll say 13% interest, which is probably pretty close. Your payment on that would be about $120 a month. 118. I got. So your kid goes to school. You can't give him the 10,000, but if you can afford $120 a month, you can start paying on that loan and paying it down. right? And then after 12 months, you can get your name off the cosigner. Then you sign the next year's loan. You do it again. You do it again. And then when your kid, has the job and can take over the loan, they can take over the loan. So that's a strategy I've seen a lot of people do. Middle class people, where it's like, yeah, I got divorced, or I just got the big job when I was 45, right? But you know, so that's a way to go. So they're not terrible. You just got to strategize a little bit.
Well, I do want to put out there a couple of thoughts about private student loans as well. So, one being, I feel like they come into play frequently when you go to specialty schools or some of those private schools, like what you're talking about, the
Sure.
more private universities, because they come with these higher price tags frequently, where you just can't get enough financial aid to cover the cost of tuition, etc. That's kind of when they come into play. But I did end up with a private student loan at one point in my education because that was my scenario. It was just too expensive a tuition bill,
Right.
even for the maximum amount of loan offerings, honestly. Um, but when it comes time for repayment, it becomes a really great idea to prioritize them. I would
Mm-hmm.
prioritize a private student loan in terms of payment before the federal student loans for many reasons, one of which is a variable interest rate.
Mm.
Most of the time, when you end up with a private student loan, you end up with a variable interest rate. And I remember having payments on this particular student loan ranging, I think the lowest it was like 140 something, and the highest it was like 210, 220, something like that.
Yeah.
And while depending on your financial situation, that maybe isn't such a huge dollar amount, it's less than $100 difference. But when you've just gotten out of school
That's a
and
lot of
you're not
money.
necessarily making a larger, a larger income yet, having your student loan shift because of that interest, having the monthly payment shift by 50, 70, $80, something to that effect, that can be a real budget buster.
Yeah.
So in that respect, they feel a little dangerous because you can't really lock them in.
Mm.
The other issue is that if you run into difficulties paying, you have less options in terms of payment plan and deferment when it comes to private. Now you have to check with your lender because that might vary, but they're very limited in what they will offer you for that, as opposed to with your federal loans.
Mm.
There are really quite a lot of different options if you're struggling, different payment plans, different deferments, forbearance opportunities, different ways to either lower your payment or pause your payment, at least temporarily.
Right. And so the other thing too is with a private loan, you should always, well, not always, but generally you should try to see if you can consolidate it. And if you can get the federal government to buy it, to consolidate your private loans, which they will sometimes for private loans, you should absolutely do that, because you'll be at that low fixed interest rate, which right now I think is 4.9% for student loans. So you can, if you can get the feds to buy it, that's a great idea. Sometimes if you have multiple private loans, which usually you if you have to take private loans, you will when you get out of college, you'll have them from 3 or 4 different sources. It makes sense to try to consolidate them to some lower fixed sort of interest rate on a loan. Um, the way you do that is definitely go talk to a financial aid advisor, and they will help you do that, and they'll figure it out for you with your specific situation. But yeah, you should always go ask for help, especially once you start college. Once you get out of college, you should ask them, how should I do this? How should I pay it back? How should I take this so I'm in a better position to pay it back, etc. And you pay tuition for that, so you pay their salary when you're a student, so freaking use them. Students, you also get health care through the college. I didn't know that till my second year. I'd have gotten a lot more stuff done. You get free, yeah, you get free therapy, dental work, all
Oh
that.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
took all sorts of advantage of that. I was like, free therapy? Hold on, I'm,
Oh
I'm
yeah.
not I'm not too fried for free therapy. I'm gonna go and I'm not sure what's wrong with me, but there's got to be something. So let's go and try to fix that.
Oh yeah. Now, if you're 18, you're totally fucked up. Either way, so you should definitely go see that free therapist.
I mean, you gotta need therapy about something, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
By the
So,
time you're 18, you might at least have parent issues, if nothing else.
oh, you absolutely have parent issues if you're 18. I don't care how perfect your parents. If they were perfect, you're probably even more screwed up.
Right, because that bar got set real high
I
all of a
know.
sudden, you know?
Jesus, that's not fair.
Oh,
No, but yeah, no, yeah. If you're going to school, remember you have healthcare through the college. I was fortunate; I had a job that gave me healthcare. Was a I was a cashier at a big grocery chain. Um,
I did too.
yeah,
I worked in banking. That's sort of an interesting thing. Like, what kinds of jobs can you get as a college student that'll provide your health care? I mean, a lot of times people can stay on their parents, but those situations vary as well. So
yeah.
if you can get it
Well,
on your own, that's great.
yeah. In all fairness to the kids out there today, the gig economy didn't occur till after we were out of college, so a lot of those jobs don't exist anymore. Sorry, boys and girls. But if you can find one, definitely double healthcare coverage is a good thing. So let's real quick the Biden thing. So we're going to get more into this in the next video about the history behind this and kind of why this happened. But um, you can have your opinion about it one way or the other. The bottom line is they're doing something, and so I'm pretty thrilled about that. So I know everybody's talking about the $10,000 student debt relief. It's 20,000 if you had a Pell Grant, but it's only for people that make under 125,000 a year. So it's means tested. Um, Me personally, I'd be like, just give it to everybody, but whatever. But that's the headline, and that's because it's the most interesting thing to say on the news, right? But what nobody's talking about is, oh,
Well, let's also be honest though. That's a pretty sexy component of it. I mean, like, when's
right,
the last time the government was like, "Hey, guess what? We're going to give you 10 to 20 grand of money that's not your own tax money that you got refunded. We're just going to give it to you," and that's essentially. I mean,
yeah, but it's also kind of backhanded too because the government is why a lot of us have these student loans in the first place. So it's kind of like
okay,
you got. I mean,
that's true.
I'm just
But
if
they
we're
spent
making a
a lot of
political
years
argument.
getting us into the situation and not actually doing anything to help us out. So you know what?
It's
I'll
like
take
Lacey.
it.
If I punch you in the face every day, and then one day I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give you 1 week where I don't punch you in the face, and you're like, wow, isn't he generous? It's a little bit what this feels like. I'm just saying.
I feel like that would have been better had you said, instead of giving me a week of not punching me in the face one day, you just give me a bandage.
Okay, I'll give you a band-aid.
All right, you give me a band-aid.
I won't let you bleed on the floor.
All
Jeez.
right.
Okay, that was really violent, but uh,
I feel traumatized just thinking about it.
yeah, I don't want to punch you. I'm thinking about how much my hand would hurt. Uh, that's my motivation right there. No, so that's the student led debt relief is the big headline because it's the most sexy thing to talk about. There are a lot of other things in this though that are also, I think, equally attractive. One is they're capping how much colleges can raise tuition going forward. And they're putting more money back into colleges and they're putting more conditions on that. So colleges can no longer start racking up fees and a bunch of other shit anymore. They have to keep it into a certain level to keep it feasible. So the government is now giving them more funding, but they're making it contingent on you have to follow all these rules, which is what it used to be like in the 60s and 70s, right? When, we had the big boom when people started going to college. Uh, so I think that's a very positive thing that the government's dumping more money into higher ed. On top of that fact that they've done is so under Bush, what he did was he capped it at your federal student loans, not private loans, just your federal student loans. You couldn't be charged more. You couldn't be expected to pay more than 15% of what they call discretionary income, which is basically just extra money that they assume you have, right?
Right. They have their own special formula you can plug that into to decide.
Yeah, it's not your total income; it's what you had left over, essentially. Obama then capped that lower at 10%. Biden has now pushed that down to 5%, and they've narrowed what qualifies as discretionary income, so that 5% is actually closer to like 3.5 or 4 of what it was before. So that's great news, because if you have a ton in student loans and you're just never going to pay it off, you just pay the minimum until you die, and then the loan's forgiven when you die. I mean, the negative is you have to pay it till you die, but still. But you have a lot of people that are like retired, where it's like they went to school, or they had grandkids or kids that went to school and they took out plus loans and shit like that because they wanted their kids to go to school, and so they kind of threw themselves on the fire, you know, to do that, and they owe $100,000 and $200,000 in student loans. Well, what happens is if you can't pay that, the government can take 15% of your Social Security, which is that's what you're living on, is devastating, to pay
Right.
those loans.
That's absolutely devastating, because I mean, this will have to be a future video, because we definitely have a retirement savings crisis in this country. But
Absolutely.
think about it, people don't have much saved for retirement, and Social Security is really meant to be a supplemental form of income, but
Right.
that's what a lot of people's primary is, honestly. So if you got,
Well,
15% or whatever
right.
wrapped off of there because of student loans.
And I have plenty of arguments about how we should beef up Social Security quite a bit, but yeah, but think about it. They can't take that, the 15% that they could take out of that. They can't take more than 5% now of your discretionary income going forward, come next year, right? So if your discretionary income, all you're living on is Social Security, your discretionary income is probably almost nothing, right? So that 5% is probably $0. Maybe it's 100, right? But if it's zero, you just pay your $0 payment every month, and you're good. This is also great if you're getting out of college, you're trying to get a job, you have no discretionary income because you don't really have an income, or you have a very small income starting out, right? The government won't require you to pay more than that 5% of whatever the discretionary is. So it'll be a small amount for most people that are starting out or struggling. So it won't be like eating you away, where you like God, I owe 10%. I have to pay that $200 a month, and I'm living on 20 grand a year. To take 20, $2,400 away from somebody who's living on 20 grand, that's a lot. That's rent and groceries and for at least 2 months, right? So that's rough. So that's all gone down, and pretty much gone to a point where it's almost gone away. The other cool thing about that is okay, so you're paying the minimum. Well, the loan's accruing interest, so it's still growing because you're not paying down the principal or paying down the interest completely, right? Not anymore. As long as you make the minimum payment, whatever your minimum payment is, the government will now pay for the interest. So your loan will not grow as long as you're making the minimum payment. So if your minimum payment is 100 or 0, as long as you make your payment, even if it's $0, you make your $0 payment every month, right? And when I say that, I mean you just don't do anything. You got $0, but you're meeting your goal, right?
That one's a big deal. That one is a really, really big deal, because I can't tell you how many people I know that have been making minimum payments, not necessarily like staring at the balance, because they permanently check the bill every month and just have it automatically coming out, because it saves them a little money by doing that. And they log in every once in a while to like update their payment plans, whatever. They look down and go, how is it $20,000 higher? I've been making all my payments, and that happens. People's loans grow exponentially just because of the interest getting dumped on top of it. So that one, while it's not like the sexy headline going on, it's really a serious thing that's going to help a lot of people.
Yeah, let me do this real quick. So let's say you had a 20,000, and you were making So $20,000 loan, you were making $600 a year in payments, $50 a month payments. In 10 years, your $20,000 loan would be worth, would still be, you'd owe 24,700 or 24,000. So your loan would have grown by $4,757.35 in 10 years, even though you were paying $600 a year because you weren't paying down the interest enough or paying into the principal. That isn't going to happen anymore. The government will cover that money. So if you're paying your $50 a month, and that's what your minimum payment is, right? That loan will still be 20,000 in 10 years. It won't be 24. Right.
So it might not be less, but at least it's not getting worse.
It's not going to get worse. And you got to think about this. We have 1.6 trillion in debt. How much of that, and that's student loan debt, total student loan debt in the country. How much of that is interest that's accrued? I bet you a big chunk of that is interest that's accrued. Right? And next time we'll get into more of the politics of what happened with all that, but that's a big deal. So the government's going to pay for the accrued interest as long as you're making your minimum payments. Your minimum payments are going to go down, right? They're dumping more money into school, and they're trying to get more kids to go to college and trying to make it more feasible for them to go to college so they're not burdened with the kind of debt that you and I fucking had. So I got to tell you right now, this for an executive order, I'm really thrilled about this. And if you're watching this, go, and I'll put this in the link in the description below, ed.gov/subscriptions/subscriptions. You can get notifications on this for how to go forward with this, for how to get your $10,000 debt relief, when to file for that. Right now, you should be looking at filing soon because I think they've released it, or they're going to release it any day now. And
yes,
and if you want to get it done this year, you should file right now.
Yeah, let me jump in on that one. So the government has suggested that for the majority of us, they have our information and we should be seeing this automatically. But they may not have all of the appropriate information for all of the people. So they are making a paper form, which should be a one-pager. I haven't seen it yet because I don't know if it's even come out yet. But they're supposed to be putting that out this month, which is the month of October. And they are recommending that people go ahead and file that if they're not seeing an automatic forgiveness hit their accounts. And the suggestion has been
you should file anyway.
Sensitive people.
You should file anyway.
File it anyway.
File anyway. It's the government; they can deal with it.
But the suggestion they have made is to file it by the middle of November. The reason that is a special time frame is because they believe it will take 4 to 6 weeks to process it. And if you file it by the middle of November, that means by the end of the calendar year, you will have received your forgiveness in theory. But of course, like the IRS gets backlogged. So, I mean, we don't know if this will get backlogged too. Who knows?
I'm actually, I'm a little bit more confident. I'm confident in this, and I'm actually a little bit more confident, especially since they've dumped a lot more money in the IRS and the U.S. Postal Service and stuff like that. So I'm a liberal. I'm not a liberal. I'm further left than that, but not the bitch. But like, as a financial planner, man, when I started, it's like you call the IRS, and you'd be on hold for like 4 minutes, and you get somebody, and it would be resolved in like 10 or 15 minutes, right? Under Trump, it would take you 3 to 4 hours. It might take you 2 days. I mean, they cut so much fun. The government didn't.
I'm also a tax preparer, so when I get a situation where I literally have to call the IRS, I go, "Oh, great."
Yeah. Well, it's gotten better, but it's gotten better in the last year. I'm just saying.
It's true. It has gotten better.
It's gotten way better.
Let's loop back around though.
Sorry, just gossiping bullshit. Yeah.
The reason it's really important that you file by the middle of November, assuming everything operates on time. And yes, I do have a little more confidence that this one will operate within its correct time frame.
Yeah.
But sooner is better.
Yeah.
Sooner is better because as of the end of this calendar year, the pause on payments that has existed throughout the COVID pandemic is going to be done. They said they're not kicking the can down the road any further, so we're going to all have to start making our payments again. If you've already made sure your forgiveness is in check, then you will be making payments under these sort of new guidelines
Mhm.
and with a lesser balance,
Mhm.
which means your monthly payments, although not zero, which has been fun,
Which will go
are
down.
going to be significantly better than what they were pre-COVID.
Mhm.
So we want to give the government a little assist so that we can have the lower payments going into the new year.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I want to get into this point real quick, and I want you to elaborate because you know more about this. The other big thing about the Biden thing, other than covering the accrued interest, the lower payments, the debt forgiveness, is there has been kind of under Betsy DeVos, who was the former Secretary of Education under Donald Trump. Um, lovely, lovely human being. Um, do you know she had a yacht manager because she had too many yachts to manage? Yeah, that's the person. She never,
First world problems.
yeah, never went to a public school. Children never went to a public school, and yet she's managing all the public schools in the country. Love it, love her. She's great. Not a total horrible human being. Makes all of her money on private and charter schools. Yeah, yeah, that's the person I trust. Anyway, she had a freeze on student loan forgiveness. That has not gotten a ton better, but now they're saying we're not doing that anymore. We're going to grant it. So, just to give you a sense, in 2020, her last year there, 1.2 or 3 million people applied for student loan forgiveness, public employees who are entitled to it after they do 10 years of payments. Um, Out of the 1.2 or 3 million people, whatever it was that applied, they only gave 12,000 because they had to, and they denied everybody else and pushed it off. That is no longer supposed to be the case under the new executive order from Biden. They're going to start granting all those. And the public service loan forgiveness is a big deal. And Lacey, you know a lot more about it than I do. So dazzle
Yeah,
us.
so one of the super exciting things about this Biden order and how it's changing this program in particular um, has to do with some of the reasons people under DeVos and the Trump administration were being why they were being denied. So there were a lot of reasons people were being denied, but one of the reasons they were being denied had to do with sometimes payment plans.
Mm-hmm.
That seems kind of like sounds really silly.
It
Like
was
I made my
petty. Yeah.
payments, 120 of them, etc. But they had to be approved payment plans. So there were certain payment plans that were not on the table, and people didn't necessarily realize that or get guided correctly through that and weren't on the correct payment plan.
Mm-hmm.
Made 120 payments, but not all of them were maybe on the appropriate plan, and they got boom rejected. Well, under this new order, more plans are actually being
applied. So people
yeah,
know you're paying it. You think you're working your way down,
right,
and really you're just spinning in wheels because they don't count it.
right, because they're not counting that. So now they're going through, they're counting more payment plans.
Mm-hmm.
But let's pause here because I want to throw in the time sensitive thing before we go on with what some of these changes are, because
Sure.
this isn't just the original public service loan forgiveness program.
Mm-hmm.
The original one is where all the people are getting denied, etc. And they're going to be denying less people, yes, but there's a thing you have to do, and you need to get under the temporary public student loan forgiveness
Right.
program or public service loan forgiveness program. Um, the temporary one is the one that this all attaches to.
Mm-hmm.
So the form that you fill out if you are a government employee, teacher, etc.,
Mm-hmm.
to get your annual certification done, that current form should also say on the top of it that it's your annual certification and the temporary PSLF application form or something
Right.
like
Well,
that.
right.
But you want to fill this out. You want to have this in before the 31st of October, because if you're not in it,
Mm-hmm.
then these temporary provisions are not going to attach to your particular account.
Right.
So it's absolutely critical that you get this in on time.
And by the way, Lacey will send me the link. I will link it to the video for everybody.
Right, absolutely. So this is critical and it's super duper time sensitive. Now, they're going back and they're recounting people's payments toward forgiveness, and they are giving credit for things that they were not given credit for before. This payment plan situation being a situation that they're going to maybe adjust for. If you had certain periods of forbearance or periods of deferment, they're going back and counting those. Not all types of deferments are counting. In-school deferment does not count,
Okay.
and times of default do not count.
But like hardship would count.
But like a hardship, if you had an economic hardship deferment, for example, those are supposed to be going back and counting.
That's pretty cool.
That is very cool, because I remember in early years, and this won't apply to me because I wasn't a government worker at the time, but I know in early years after, getting out of college, I had some periods where I just needed to do that. The zero payment thing wasn't even an option yet, whatever. So I ended up on that deferment because I just couldn't pay it. And there were a couple of times after I moved, I had to do a couple months of forbearance. So having them go back and count some of that's really great.
Wait, so you're telling me that you didn't get out of college and get the high-paying job and just stay that way? You're telling me you lived a life where things happened? Oh my God. Oh my God.
It happened. It happened.
Yeah, no, but that's why that's cool. Because that's so cool.
That's why that's super cool. Okay, I want to throw in another super cool thing. So teachers, zoom in on this one, because this one is for you, and this is also time sensitive. So another thing that they are counting that they weren't counting before is the payments that you made that were applied to the teacher loan forgiveness program. So let's pause and say what that is. Okay, so switching over to the teacher loan forgiveness program. This is also a federal program. So it may not apply to every single teacher, because you do have to be in certain subject areas, Title I schools.
Can we pause? Teacher loan, sorry. I'm sorry, Lisa. I did double check. Okay. Something came up and I was kind of freaking out. Sorry. Okay.
Okay, so
we can keep this segment in so they can see how fucked up it all is, our editing process.
Oh wait, hold on. Before we jump back in here, I do have a fun idea.
What's that?
Do you know what would make us more fun and more gossipy?
What?
I feel like we should have a cocktail or an alcoholic beverage that we're drinking.
Just like tea or something, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
oh my God.
You can be sipping on some bourbon, I can have a glass of wine and be like, really? You know what I'm saying?
Do I seem like a bourbon guy? Is it?
You can drink whatever you want. It could change by the week, and that could be one of the things that happens. It could be like, oh, what do you have today? Well, I'm drinking a nice rosé today. What do you have, Duncan? Okay, so what are we going to talk about this week? Let's talk about some money. Yeah.
Mojito.
Not that we need to sound intoxicated, but I think it might seem like fun gossipy if we had a cocktail. I'm just saying.
I'll have a mojito. I don't think it's a gay drink.
Hey, you know what? You drink what you like, man. Most often it'll probably be wine for me, but you know what? I like to try different things, so it could be whatever.
Mix it up.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to cut this. I'll decide later, but I don't think I'm going to cut this.
Well,
that's a good segment.
Maybe somebody will tell us in the comments if we should have happy hour while we're gossiping about finance. Should we have happy hour while we're gossiping about finance, or should it be tea time?
I have a feeling the show will go on for like 4 hours if we start drinking.
I mean, it might.
Yeah, I can edit it out later, I guess.
We would maybe just have to film less often. I don't know.
Yeah, there we go. All right.
Let's talk about the teacher loan.
PSLFs. Go back.
Oh no. Okay, so in the temporary version of PSLF, if you apply for it by the 31st, teachers, there's one in there for you.
Okay, so PSLF, real quick, can you just tell everybody what that is? PSLF. Public.
Oh. Yeah, Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program.
Yeah.
Which is just a mouthful, so sometimes just saying the letters is way easier.
Basically, it's if you make 120 payments on your loan and you work at a nonprofit or you're a civil servant working for a government in the United States, after 120 payments, your entire student loan debt should be forgiven, hypothetically. Right. But there's a lot Lacey is establishing. There's a lot more to it. So go.
Right. Okay.
Sorry.
So one of the things that they are doing is they are counting payments that were applied for teachers toward the teacher loan forgiveness program.
Mm-hmm.
Before, if a teacher applied for the teacher loan forgiveness program, there would be a certain amount of payments, 5 years worth of payments, that would get applied toward that. If they were applied toward the teacher loan forgiveness program, they could not serve as double duty for the public service loan forgiveness program.
Right.
So let's pause and talk about what the teacher loan forgiveness program is and looks like. So, as Duncan mentioned before, if you're a teacher, most likely you had to get a master's degree for that. And so you have more student loans for a job that is
low
not
paying,
historically known as being the higher paying job.
Right.
So the teacher loan forgiveness program is a set amount of forgiveness for people who work at Title I schools under certain subject areas, etc. And it will forgive a portion of student loans after 5 years of service where you've been making your payments.
Mm-hmm. So 60 payments.
My subject area is English. An English teacher will get 5,000. Mm-hmm. The highest amount is 17,500, and that would be like special ed teachers, math teachers, science teachers. So it's all kind of specific based on like what you teach. The lowest amount is 5,000. The highest amount is 17,500. Mm-hmm. Okay, but it takes you 5 years worth of payments, so 60 payments, mm-hmm. in order to get that. Now, if you only maybe took out like 20,000 or less of student loans, and you've been paying on it and whatnot, like taking that might actually make some sense because it might get you pretty close to the bottom, right?
Yeah.
But if you have one of those higher balances, mm-hmm. and you're a teacher, you might be looking at it being like, "Ooh, I don't want to eat up my 60 payments."
Right.
On this and still have this much left, because then it's going to take another 10 years, worth of payments after that before I can get the full forgiveness.
But
so teachers were not really taking advantage. A lot of them were not taking advantage of the teacher loan forgiveness.
Because they didn't think it would double over. But didn't that change?
That just changed under the temporary provision of the public student loan forgiveness program. The original version of that program didn't allow the double dip. But now this temporary version allows the double dip. You can look this up online, call them and bug the heck out of those people. They're going to love me for saying that. Yeah. But I did, and I had a lot of teachers calling in and asking those questions.
Well, it's the government. They get paid. Come on.
Exactly. They get paid either way, so blow up their phones, double check the information. But they are letting these payments count for both of them. So you can put them for your teacher loan forgiveness, mm-hmm. get the balance cut out even further. Driven repayment plan starting in January, and under the temporary provision still have credit for all of those payments that were used for temporary loan forgiveness, or have them credited back once they go and do their resorting, which is what they're doing right now, and have the lower balance, lower payment, and still be on track to your full forgiveness.
So the PSLF.
Really setup.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. It's a really good setup and really good opportunity to be able to make as much progress as you can.
And you have the link of where to go to get the phone number and call them and do all this stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we'll add that below. But yeah, jump on that one. They have to do it by like October, right? At this point.
Yeah, October 31st. So that's very serious deadline. I mean, they don't have to have you processed by then, but you got to have your application in by then. So make sure that happens, because it's worth a lot of money.
Yeah, and we're already in October now. So sorry, ladies and gentlemen, we're slow. I don't know what to tell you. Either that or the government's fast, but I'd be shocked if the government was fast. I've worked for the government. We were never fast. So great. Yeah, that's.
What are we going to talk about with student loans now?
Oh, I want to. So there's a lot of pushback, from the conservatives. They're not happy. They don't They don't want you to get student loan debt relief. They want college to be really expensive. That's the thing. It's not fair, Lacey. It's really not fair that you and me and 44 million other people are going to get some debt relief and have more money to pump into the economy. So I just let's just look at. I mean, they're talking about it, and maybe they have some valid points. So let's look. What is Fox saying? What did the Fox say, Lacey? It'll be great. Trust me.
All right, let's see what the Fox had to say.
Yep, we will. All right.
Welcome back to the Big Saturday Show. The White House is spending a lot of time touting its new student loans handout plan.
Is that better?
Not a lot of time answering questions about who will foot the bill.
Is the White House going to release a cost estimate at some point?
Yeah, we've talked about that. So we're.
I want to qualify this. I know who will foot the bill, Lacey. Do you know?
Who's that going to be, Duncan?
The government.
Going to share what that's going to look like.
We all know who will be paying for it. It's taxpayers. And as the Biden administration avoids questions, a new Penn-Wharton model finds the final price tag could exceed $1 trillion over 10 years.
So I want to qualify this. So I read the Penn-Wharton model.
Yeah, what is it?
Yeah, so they said it would be 329 billion if everybody got the 10,000. Could be closer to 6. So when he says $1 trillion, he's rounding up, or he's adding a bunch of other shit that's not factored in. But just to give you a comparison, we're looking at, even if it was $1 trillion, right? You're looking at 100 million a year, 100 billion. Sorry. The defense budget, I think, is 780 or 90 billion right now, for the Pentagon, and the Pentagon only asked for 730, so they gave them an extra 60. So I mean, if you'd have just given the Pentagon what they asked for and put that other 60 in, it'd all be fine. On top of that fact, this idea that taxpayers are going to pay it is bullshit. I mean, some tax money is going to go to it, but it's like, who doesn't? Everybody who pays taxes, your tax money is going to go to shit you don't want. I mean, do you approve of everything the government spends your tax money on, Lace?
No. You know what? If they gave me some sort of thing where I could vote for where I wanted to divert my personal allotments, that'd be great.
But the world, it doesn't work that way. I mean, it's not how a government works. But yeah, so it's just kind of a ridiculous thing. Plus, nobody's taxes are going up because of this. Nobody's getting taxed more because of this. I want to qualify this. It's an executive order. So, as a poli-sci major.
So, how's that work?
Let me explain.
Give us the elevator speech version of how it works. No dissertations.
Congress controls the purse. So, Congress is the only one that can raise taxes. This is an executive order from the president. The president cannot raise your taxes.
Because he's not Congress.
Right. Elevator speech, done, sold. Game day.
That was good.
Yeah, I know.
I'll have to check the timing on that, but that was kind of like a 30-second elevator speech.
Yeah,
all right, let's.
I dunked that. I dunked that motherfucker.
Do you want to go back in the foxhole? I suppose we could.
Yeah, we
right?
should. Yeah.
Let's go in the foxhole.
Oh, because they're brilliant. Yeah.
You know, Rachel, we're sitting right now at what, $30+ trillion in debt, and every penny of it was spent in bills that were allegedly paid for.
Almost all of it racked up by Republican presidents. Want to point that out?
Right.
When they got passed. How do we get here? What do we do?
No, it's crazy. And, we're creating a culture, I think, among young people. I think this just sends such a bad message. And there's all these young people, you just see them. I actually met a guy once. Sean and I were young. We were struggling to pay off our bills. I think we had like 5 or 6 kids at the time. And he just said, he was some hippie, he's like a old friend of my husband's. And he said, I'm not paying it. I'm sticking it to the man. Well, in this case, the man is a
because
welder.
only hippies are going to not want to pay, and only hippies are going to stick it to the man, right?
Well, God, her thinking is so okay. It's all these young people, and it's the culture of these young people. Now, let me talk about somebody who's no, but now let me talk about somebody I knew years ago who's now my age, as an example of the young people today. That's what she did. I mean, it's like her thinking is so muddled. Okay, but yeah, no, he's a hippie. Doesn't care. Hippies are losers. We hate the hippies.
I don't know. I don't like the hippies. I think they're all right.
Yeah, I don't give a shit. But it's one of those things where it's like, yeah. But oh god. Anyway, it's like, well, we had 5 kids and da 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 da.
Listen, there is nothing wrong with a yurt. I'm just saying.
I'm not knocking it. I think.
No, I didn't say you were, but I feel like she is. I feel like.
Oh no, she totally is. But
It's a little judgy here.
who's really paying for this, Lace? It's the welders. The welders.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right.
The welder. Let's go back a second. She'll explain this. You don't understand. You don't understand. That's the problem.
My husband's. And he said, I'm not paying it. I'm sticking it to the man. Well, in this case, the man is a welder. Who has 4 kids, or it's a waitress, a single mom. This is who they're sticking it to, and then there's these self-entitled, and of course they say, well, we're a prep.
So, correct me if I'm wrong here. Don't most welders have to have a certification?
Yes, Duncan, they do. And actually, let's talk about welders for just a second, because I happen to know 3 of them off the top of my head. Maybe more if I stop and think about it, but at least 3 off the top of my head. And do you know what they did to become welders and get that certification?
I don't.
They went to a program at a college. Now, not all colleges have this, but where I lived at the time, there was a community college that had a very, very good welding program, and that was where they went. And do you know how they paid for that?
Well, obviously they paid for it from the hard work.
At the end of rainbow, right?
The hard work they did. They pulled themselves up by their bootstraps.
Oh, yes, the bootstrap theory. Well, those bootstraps got their rent paid, but what got their tuition paid was their student loans.
Student loans probably paid their rent, too.
So, I mean, probably at least part of it, because it was a pretty high cost of living city comparatively. Yep. But regardless.
So these welders.
I think these welders aren't angry. I think they're jumping up and down because they probably have some student loans hanging out there from their training.
So these welders are going to get
about to get wiped out, or at least partially wiped out.
So a lot of these welders are going to get this student debt relief, meaning they're stealing from the single mother waitresses. So the welders. So the welders are So it's really the waitresses that are getting screwed here.
Why are we assuming that these waitresses do not have any college education and will not benefit from this? Because
why are we assuming these waitresses aren't in college?
Some of these waitresses might be in college, right? Some of them may have been in college in the past and not finished, or be taking like semesters off, right? And going back, because goodness knows I've known people who have had to do that because of their own financial needs, right? Or some of these waitresses might have children that are in college or approaching college age, and they might be, trying to think of how they can help their own kids out. They might have in college kids that have student loans out. So they might be pretty excited for that.
Well, I don't have children. I'm angry at these waitresses that have kids. I'm paying for their kids to go to school. I am paying for their kids to go to school. I am paying taxes for public school for their kids. I don't have kids. Why am I paying for their kids? I'm the one getting screwed here. She's such a freaking idiot. That's such an idiot, dude.
Contributing to my paycheck. I appreciate it.
Oh my God, somebody else is getting a benefit.
So here's
Call
what
the fucking police.
Here's
Jesus
what I'm going to
Christ.
say. I'm put this out there, and I don't mind throwing myself out there in this way.
Go for it.
I've thought a lot about this anger about something somebody else gets that I don't get thing, and I do understand, a certain amount of just jealousy factor in life, because it happens. Sometimes we do feel that, but now there's this whole big push about, you know, community colleges being free. Maybe getting the first 2 years of a person's education free, or maybe that's all the education you need, depending on what you're doing, right?
I'm down with that.
Transfer into a university, etc. Well, that was not an option. I mean, people went to community colleges when I was in college, and sometimes they got some credits taken care of a little bit cheaper that way, certainly. But it wasn't free, and so that wasn't even an option for me. But you know what? I'm really excited about the idea that some of my friends' children could receive an opportunity like that, get a first couple of years for free. That's a huge advantage for them, and I'm not mad about it.
Well, I'm a patriot. I'm all for anything that makes us more powerful as a nation. So I want more educated kids. I'll throw my money in the bucket for that one. I mean, if we have smarter and smarter people, I'm all for it. I mean, my parents didn't push me to go to college because they wanted me to be an idiot. So I mean, but it's just one of these things where it's like, and the other thing is too is this whole, like you said, this jealousy about somebody getting a benefit that I'm not getting. I'm sorry, they're Christians. Isn't like the 8th or 9th commandment not to covet? Amendment, the commandment not to covet. I mean, Jesus Christ, these people.
Or and I think the pandemic, Charlie, has exacerbated this because people just get used to getting free stuff, and that's what happened. And they got used to sitting home, and I'm really just worried about the long-term cultural consequences, because the greatness of America has always been her work ethic, the work ethic of her people.
And
I want to stop for a second, because I didn't really pay attention to this the first time I watched it. So her whole argument is there's a cultural aspect about work ethic. So if people are getting benefits that help them out and help them live a better life, that's bad because it'll harm their work ethic. So the more suffering there is, right, the more desperation, the more poverty is better, because then people will work harder. That's basically the argument she just made. Am I wrong there?
Now, if we're given a little bit of free money, we're going to get lazy.
And we're looking at a woman who's probably never really worked a real job in her life. I mean, I bet you dollars to pesos. Mommy and daddy handed her pretty much everything. I bet you this job was handed to her from a friend or a parent. I mean, it's fucking amazing. And she's like, nope, see, you're going to be lazy. You're not going to work.
I feel like laziness is always an argument for why resources should not exist. And this could go down a whole rabbit hole, which I won't spend a lot of time on. But anytime there is somebody in the political arena that wants to give a resource to people in order to help them to maybe get out of a certain situation, get a better situation happening.
Right.
The argument is always thrown out there that it's going to make people lazy. Well, there's always going to be a certain amount of people that really just kind of are lazy by nature, because some people are. But
sure,
I don't know that getting resources change that. Like, we're either, I don't know, I'm going to throw it out there, like, some people are just intrinsically motivated, some people maybe are not, and I don't know that offering resources changes that.
Well, I would disagree on this point. So, like, if, let's say I had 2 kids, and one kid I didn't help out, didn't enroll in school, let them do their own thing, didn't teach them anything, didn't really give them any affection or attention, anything, right? And the other kid I gave everything to: love, attention, affection, best schools, taught him sports, spent a lot of time with him. Of those two kids, which one's more likely to be hardworking and productive? And which one's more likely to be, a criminal? You think the kid that I gave everything to, that I gave every opportunity to, is going to go to fucking to a life of crime? No, they're going to go to fucking college. They're going to succeed. The kid that was fucking neglected and kicked to the curb is more likely to do whatever it takes to survive. And that might be being lazy. That might be committing crime. I think when you throw resources at people, it changes the whole fucking game. I mean, this is the whole Maslow and the hierarchy of needs argument, right? Which I really prescribe to, which is if everybody, right, were given the basic things: food, shelter, clothing, healthcare, education, just the basics, right? If that was just provided, you didn't have to fight for it, you didn't have to struggle for it, you didn't have to work for it, it was there. Well, then what's left?
So I'm already safe and clothed and fed
and housed.
and
No matter what
housed.
happens, I'm safe, right? So what's my next move? Education, bettering myself, being more productive, right? Contributing more, right? And then of course the higher point of what he calls self-actualization, to the point where you just do based on what you want and you desire, not from need or desperation, but from actual desire, right? And that would sort of be the heightened point. And that's the thing, is they don't want that. That's what she just argued. No. You should be desperate and needy, and you should be begging. You should be working your ass off 100 hours a week and begging us for fucking scraps.
So
It's the
all.
all.
When you put it like that, you want us desperate and needy so we can do all those crap jobs that you don't want to do. Is that what it is?
That's what she's saying.
If you give us too many resources and we have the opportunity to already have a sense of safety and we can aspire to something else, maybe we won't want to do those crap jobs that you don't want to do.
Yeah, that's what she's saying.
Is that what we're saying?
That's what she's saying. She's saying if you give Oliver Twist the second bowl of soup, when he says, please sir, can I have some more? No, he's just going to be lazy and worthless. No, you need to beat him for asking. He should not be asking for more, ever.
Wow, you're violent today, Duncan.
I know.
All of your examples are super violent today. You're beating up Oliver Twist.
Don't beat up Oliver Twist. Don't beat up Oliver.
Okay.
I like
Save Oliver Twist.
I like that book. I like The Artful Dodger. I like him. He's slick. All right.
Taking pride in
dignity,
taking care of yourself.
Taking care of yourself, your personal responsibility, absolutely.
Yeah, Katie. Obviously, Corinne Jean-Pierre is not a Wharton grad, but listen to this. Listen to this quote from her.
It's a very targeted plan that's going to give relief to 90% of Americans that are making less than $75,000 a year. That is important. This is a campaign promise that the president made and kept.
That's
and
true.
Went beyond, not just the 10,000, but up to 20,000.
The idea of giving $1 trillion back to the innocent American taxpayer, not a bad idea. This doesn't seem to be like the smartest way to do it.
This is a redistribution.
Well, I want to qualify that. He just went. He just kind of fucking coughed it up, didn't he? The idea of giving $1 trillion back to the taxpayers is not a bad idea. After you just agreed with the woman who said it was.
Yeah. So, what's your opinion, really, man?
Yeah. What the fuck is? They're giving it to the wrong taxpayers. That's the problem. You need to give it to the welders.
This is a redistribution.
Redistribution
from wealthy degree holders to the working class.
Okay, that's bullshit. You can't get this unless you make under $125,000 a year. Are you telling me that people that make under 125,000 are wealthy?
Like, what is she talking about?
I know. Well, she's blonde.
Hey, now.
What this is, it is not the
Sorry.
numbers that she is talking about. It's going to cost $1 trillion. It means that you now owe more to the government every year before you're able to take home
Your taxes aren't going up. You don't owe more.
your money to pay for your own family. What about the family that wants to save money to send their own kid to college? What about the family that sacrifices? There was that famous video of Elizabeth Warren when she was on the campaign trail with that father. He said, look, my friends are buying boats and fancy cars, and I was saving for my daughter's college. Am I going to get my money back when you forgive their loans because they took them out? And she said, absolutely not.
Yep.
And you had...
First off, that was a trap. Second off, yeah. I mean... So what? So you spent the money to pay for your kid to go to college. Great. That's good for you. I think that's wonderful. But then somebody else gets their debt forgiven and you're like, well, that's not right. Is that just me or am I fucked up on this?
No, I mean,
It's just...
I don't know.
I don't know.
We've gotten maybe a little bit too much. If it happens for one, it has to happen for all.
Yeah.
Like, does this go to the land of the participation award or something? Like,
I don't know what their deal is.
Education Secretary
We'll give this another
well.
minute.
The White House is trying to make an argument that people need breathing room. They're saying people should take out mortgages now after they get their student loan debt forgiven when they haven't paid that back. And they keep saying that we're in a good economy, that we're not in a recession, that COVID is essentially over, especially when it comes to the border. So that message does not compute with them saying that people are not in a good economic position to pay back their student loans.
So for a guy that calls himself...
Well, that's... I don't know. Do you want to watch more? This is like... It's going to be the same shit.
yeah, let's move on.
Let's move on. So the other one is I want to do this. So here's Sam Cedar from the Majority Report. And in this image, she's talking to, I think her name is Francesca Fiorentini. And she has a podcast called The Bituation Room, which is really funny. But so what happened was there was some lawsuits and people got cut off some of the student debt. And Sam's going to explain this. We're going to play this a little bit quick because I want to get through it pretty quick. But Sam's going to explain this, and we're gonna clip over to somebody really, really not intelligent saying the same thing, only worse.
Entity owns and services federally guaranteed student loans, they will face economic harm from the debt relief program.
Oh, poor baby.
In Nebraska, some of the pension fund is in one of these private services. And so the Biden administration had a choice, which was to allow this suit to continue and perhaps either delay, certainly I imagine delay, but completely undercut the ability of the administration to provide student debt relief to 45 million Americans. They basically made the decision to cordon off those people who are in that situation where they have private loans that are serviced by private entities, and basically say you cannot consolidate them going forward. And by the administration count, like the cohort of people who exist in there is being reported as about 3 to 4 million people. Mm-hmm. So it reduced the number of people who were getting student loan debt relief by 3 or 4 million people. However, apparently within that cohort, like 1.5 million of them have other federally owned student loans, which they will get the debt relief on there. And 1.6 million borrowers will have, those are the direct loans. Another 1.5 have a certain type of privately held federal loan, an FFEL consolidation loan. Theirs would have been very difficult to relieve anyways. So according to the administration, there's 770,000 borrowers who are going to be directly affected, and they're going to lose their loan forgiveness because of this Republican lawsuit, or at least the Biden administration's response to it. Frankly, I mean, I would imagine the lawyers in the Biden administration have figured out this is the best way to preserve the loan relief for 41, 42 million Americans.
Okay, so let me check in. So did you catch all that? So what happened was there were a couple lawsuits. There was one in Texas that was really embarrassing. It all blew up. But then Missouri and Nebraska Republicans filed a lawsuit to try and stop the Biden executive order that we just talked about. And the argument is, if you go to court, you have to have what's called standing, right? Which means I have to have a reason. I have to show that there's harm being done to me. So the harm in this case is that banks in Missouri and Nebraska they buy our student loans in packages and they sell them as investments to pension funds, and kind of like what happened during the housing crisis with CDOs and all that shit.
Right.
And so the banks are going to, if you pay off these loans, the banks aren't going to get the interest on them, so the value of the assets is going to go down. So the banks and the pensions would potentially lose money. The pensions probably wouldn't, because they could just sell them and buy new shit, right? But they could potentially lose money. Now, whether or not they'd win this in court is speculative. I doubt it. But what it would do is you'd have to go to a court proceeding, which could take a year, 2 years. Which means, as Sam was saying, 40 plus million, almost 44 million people wouldn't get their student debt relief because it would be delayed until it was resolved in a court situation. So what the administration, the Biden administration, what the lawyers decided to do and what they agreed to do was these 770,000 people that this directly affects, right? Who have these specific types of loans, we're just going to cut that. So it's basically triage. These 770,000 people that we were trying to do it for, we're not now, because we don't want to delay for 2 years, giving these 44 million other people the debt relief. Now, I think that was a smart decision based on the circumstances. But as Sam points out, this is the conservative Republicans who are trying to stop this altogether, which we just watched the Fox people fucking prove to you that they don't like this, right? Now let's watch a really fun conservative Republican completely misinterpret exactly what Sam just explained.
Your favorite and mine.
My favorite person.
President Biden announced that he's going to forgive $10,000 worth of student loans for anyone making less than $125,000. Court cases have ensued, questioning whether he has the constitutional right to actually do that. And of course, he did this before midterms,
by the way.
Which was a politically genius move, by the way, to try to.
What was that?
I said, yeah, you already covered that.
Yeah.
Why you did. Give us your really fabulous elevator speech. If you didn't catch that, go back and listen to the elevator speech.
Elevator speech, he does.
Get everybody's eye off the ball of the failing economy and so forth, because looks most.
By the way, so this is Dave Ramsey on the right. On the left is Christina Ellis.
Yeah, she's kind of a new face to the whole Ramsey network situation, I believe.
Yeah, they got a minority.
Well,
that's new for them. I'm proud of them.
No, that's not new for them. They've had them before, but
they usually fire them. But anyway, he hasn't had a minority for a while. I'm just saying.
There we go.
Okay.
And she is their new student loan expert. Everybody apparently has their area where they're an expert, I guess, and she's their student loan person.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna get into her in a minute.
All right, well, let's see. I haven't really seen her yet.
Your political leaning that the Dems are going to take a bloodbath at the midterms, and so he's doing anything he can to get the eye.
I want to point this out too. Right now, the polls show the Democrats are probably going to take the Senate. easily. They might lose the House. I think it's a 70-30 spread on that one. But that's not a bloodbath if you take the Senate. So I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. Clearly we're reading different news.
And then this comes out, and this is not from right-leaning media source, from a left-leaning media source called NPR.
NPR is not left. That bothers. NPR is not a left-leaning source. National Public Radio is not. It's yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah, they're saying that now up to 800,000 borrowers who thought they were going to be part of the relief may not be part of the relief now. Those are borrowers who had Perkins loans and FFEL loans that were issued and managed by private banks, but not guaranteed by the federal.
But guaranteed. They're guaranteed by the federal government. But
yes, but guaranteed, sorry.
Yeah. But were once the mainstay of the federal loan programs until the FFEL program ended in 2010. So if you've got an old student loan prior to 2010, in a remarkable reversal that will affect the fortunes of many student loan borrowers, the U.S. Department of Education has quietly changed its guidance around who qualifies for President Biden's sweeping student debt relief plan. This is from NPR. Today, according to federal data, more than 4 million borrowers still have commercially held FFEL loans. Until Thursday, the department's own website advised these borrowers that they could consolidate these loans into federal direct loans and thereby qualify for relief under Biden's debt cancellation program. But on Thursday, the department quietly changed that language.
I want to qualify this too, real quick. So this is Dave Ramsey, financial expert. I think he's Jesus Christ's personal financial planner. You notice how he just skims right past the details of what this does and who it affects.
Right. Doesn't do any of that.
I mean, dude, you're in finance. Getting in the weeds is what the fucking point is. But he just skips right over it. I mean, it's just amazing.
Legitimately figure out who it helps and who it doesn't, or at least try.
Yeah, well, he doesn't care.
So as not to raise a ruckus in the media. We read it. So the quiet part goes away now. Because there's 22 million of you out there, so we just made the quiet part go away. You just found out that they did this. I told you when this happened that it was not going to work exactly the way they said it was going to work. And besides that, they haven't even said.
I want to qualify this too. He didn't say it wasn't going to work the way it was going to work. He said he thought it would fail in lawsuits. He thought there'd be no debt relief.
That is true. That was his statement.
And okay, 770,000 got kicked off to save 44 million. And now he's taking a victory lap? All right, yeah. Way to go. It's like the kid that loses at chess and goes, well, yeah, but I got your pawn. Yeah, good job, buddy.
How it's going to work completely. I told you that the Department of Education had no notice ahead of time. StudentLoan.gov had no notice ahead of time that there was going to be a student loan forgiveness announced out of the White House. If you're going to announce a sweeping program that the federal government is going to have to institute, prior to announcing it, you normally, if you're the president, would let the departments know that are going.
Yeah, that was the notice.
And for all the times he's been the president.
But that was I mean, it wasn't going to happen that day when he announced it. He announced it was going to happen by the end of the year.
Right. He didn't say, today, on this day, you're going to log in and see all of your balances have been. No, that was not what happened.
Right. Well, you didn't notice studented.gov. But I did. I just noticed. I just gave them notice. I just said it.
Along with the American people.
We released a press release. We sent it to all the departments. But this is the kind of guy where what was that movie? Remember the movie Clueless?
Yeah.
with Alicia Silverstone. There's the bit where her father is yelling at her. He's like, "Get in here!" And she's like, "What?" He's like, "What is this?" And she's looking at second notice of two outstanding speeding tickets, right? And she's like, "I don't remember getting a first notice." Her father's like, "The ticket was the first notice." You idiot.
Yeah,
They
this
have
was
to
the
institute
notice.
it. They had no knowledge of it. Hint: everyone knew it wasn't really going to happen.
But it
And
does
here are the
happening.
beginnings of the unravelings.
You
An
idiot.
administration official tells NPR that roughly 800,000 borrowers would now quietly be excluded from relief. I added the quietly because quietly is all in this NPR article, although it's not quiet anymore. See, you put it out.
Right. Well, and I think that's the key is that we kind of need to put that in the megaphone because these are people who are already breathing sighs of relief that they're already counting on this forgiveness because Biden sounded confident it was going to happen.
You know,
It's a little nerve-wracking.
it's so sad.
It's very sad.
So sad. You know what screws up your hope? You know what'll steal your hope? When you place your hope in the wrong things.
No. Let's skip that for a sec. So I like those two. So you got Sam Cedar, not a financial expert, not a political expert, but he is a political commentator. He runs a very dry political show. What does Sam do? He explains it to you.
Mhm.
Dave didn't explain shit. He just explained you're not going to get it. Oh, they didn't know. See, I told you. I was right. I know it all.
Yeah, it seems pretty misleading, right? Mislead the viewers into sharing your opinion with something, which I mean, to a certain degree, we want people to agree with us, right? But without giving them really any information to be able to think for themselves, or at least not nearly enough information to think for themselves. That doesn't seem fair.
Well, right. He doesn't tell the story. What does he do? He tells you the conclusion. And then he tells you, see, I predicted it. I was right. Even though that's not what occurred in reality. And even the way he tells it, he doesn't tell you why it happened. He doesn't tell you, well, who sued? On what grounds? Why did they do it? Sam explains all that in detail. It was a Republican lawsuit to try and quash the whole thing, and the Biden administration had to make a tactical decision.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He's just blaming Biden. And the thing about this is Biden really doesn't have a whole lot to do with this decision. This is the attorneys. You know, his administration just has to go, well, if that's what you advise, then that's what we got to do. But that's kind of the point with this whole thing. It's like, and this is why I love Dave Ramsey, because he's such a scumbag. Everything is always about, I'm right, and I knew it, and da-da-da, and he tries to morally equivocate, but he never explains why. Why is it good? Why is it bad? Why are we doing this? Oh, and I have a fun gift for you. For the next video, boys and girls, we're not gonna do as much. We're gonna try and spread this out. So we're gonna do like detailed stuff where we educate you, and then we're gonna just rip on people. we're gonna like hopscotch it. We're gonna leapfrog it, right? We're gonna do one at a time. But yeah, so the next one, yeah, Lacey and I have a bunch of stuff. Oh, it's so good. I'm so excited for next week. You have no idea.
I'm excited for next week too.
Oh my gosh. But anyway, yeah, so
and let us know below in the comments if you want us to beverage it up for this whole thing. Should this be like happy hour finance? Maybe.
I think maybe going forward, maybe if we get enough subscribers, and you guys tell us, we will try to do like once a month. We'll do a movie night or a clip night, and we will just get wasted and eat popcorn. I'll do that. I'm into that. Once a month.
I mean, anything to eat some popcorn. Yeah, once a month.
Once a month. We have responsibilities too. So we have errands and shit to run.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
The other thing I want to talk about is this. So he's doing this with his new minority buddy. You know, Christina Ellis is her name. So Christina, who was the girl on the left? I'll bring her back up real quick. So, oh, hang on. So that's Christina here on the left, right? So the lovely Christina, she is very, 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 very lovely person. So her whole deal is she works for Dave Ramsey and Ramsey Solutions, and she's written a couple books on how you don't need to borrow student loans to go to college, which is statistically nonsense. Most people have to. That's just the way it goes right now. But she's saying, no, you can do it all on scholarships and loans, and she got over $500,000.
Wait, you said scholarships and loans. I
Oh,
don't know.
sorry, scholarships and grants. Sorry.
Oh, yes.
Scholarship.
Okay.
But she got over $500,000 in scholarships and grants. She never says that, but yeah, she was a Pell recipient, a Pell grant. Here's the catch to her. So the whole thing is you don't need to borrow money. You can just do it all on scholarships, right? Well, her biggest scholarship, she got a few scholarships, but her big one, the one that paid for everything for the most part, she got one of the Gates scholarships from Bill Gates. Okay? And it's a last dollar scholarship, which means it pays everything of your college plus room and board above what you get from normal aid. Right? It only qualifies for Pell recipients. So you have to be in a family that makes less than $60,000 a year total. So you have to be ostensibly poor to even apply. All right. You do have to be in the top 10% of your class. So she's probably a great student. And you have to be a minority. And by minority, you have to either be Black, Hispanic, Pacific Islander, or Native American. So like, mix a Japanese kid like me wouldn't qualify. You wouldn't qualify. Right?
No.
Plus our parents made more money than that. So it wasn't,
Oh, mine didn't.
Oh, okay. Well, mine.
I had a Pell grant. I would have been able to go under the Pell grant part, but obviously I would have still been kind of thrown out on that one.
Right. Well, my parents made more money than that, but so we wouldn't apply. So, but this paid for everything above. So she got into Vanderbilt in Tennessee, which is a big private school. For those of you who don't know, it's very prestigious. So kudos to her for that. I think that's fantastic. So her whole cost at Vanderbilt would have been about $250,000 for an undergrad, but that was mostly paid for by the Gates scholarship, right? So this idea that anybody can get it, when she got a scholarship that only applies to poor minorities who are exceptional at school, and you're saying that everybody can get this when you're talking about what? 20% of the 15% of the population, something like that. They could even apply, let alone get it. You're talking about the ones who can get it. You're talking about less than what, a tenth of a percent of the population.
The truth is, when I was in college, I had trouble finding things to apply for that I was like the target audience that like I was eligible for. Really, I did end up with a scholarship. A couple of them that were related to programs I applied for where I ended up doing like teaching positions and getting a scholarship with it and whatnot. But a lot of scholarships were geared toward, demographics that just were not me. And I don't particularly have a problem with that.
No.
I think they're wonderful programs, but it's just not fair to suggest that every single person is going to have the opportunity to even be eligible for as much of it as, what she was really, fortunate enough and talented enough, obviously, to receive.
Right. But my point is that she makes her living now telling people that anybody can get this. Mm-hmm. Which is just, the whole thing is bullshit. And, it's And it's the whole thing with Dave too. It's that they never explain to you how it works or why it works. They just tell you it works. Right? And even they can't prove that it works. And that's why I like to put that together. So you have Sam Cedar actually explaining to you the how and the why and what happened. And then you have Dave just, nope, it's all fucked up. And I was right. But he never tells you anything. And that's why I like to show those two back to back, just so you get a concept of when you're being bullshitted. I mean, but it's like her books about this, you can just go to school and not take student loans. I mean, that's basically it's dog shit wrapped in cat shit. And it's not reality for most people. Right? But she makes her whole living selling that. And what really pisses me off about that is, like Dave said, 22 million people that listen to him, right? How many middle-class parents are going to tell their kids, nope, I don't think you should take student loans. I'm not going to give you my taxes. So you can apply for FAFSA. And so now those kids can't go to school. You should be able to get scholarships. You should be able to do it on your own. Go be a welder, but don't go to school to be a welder. I mean,
if they can do it without loans, I say more power to them. However,
if you can, if is the big fucking word there, though. I mean,
right?
If is not reasonable for 90% of the people.
But it also depends on where you're going to school. Some schools that's very out of reach for in terms of their price degree. And I mean, there's a lot of factors. There's a lot of factors. It's not a one size fits all.
Who your parents are, how much they're going to contribute. But that's my point is like when you sit there, and I actually read a blog too where Dave, a girl asked, it was a young girl asked Dave, my mother co-signed on a private loan for me for college. And I felt guilty about it. And he basically just spit all over her and just said, oh, you shouldn't have done that. And that was horrible. And your mother shouldn't have signed it. And it's like, but if her mother didn't sign it, she wouldn't be in school. Right? And so it's one of those things where it's like, this is what pisses me off is because you're saying these things and people listen. Right?
Right.
And it damages people's lives. 22 million people are listening to this, right? Or that's what he's claiming. Of that 22 million people, how many, let's say 10%, 2.2 million parents listen to that. And they tell their kids, nope, you should be able to get scholarships and you shouldn't have to borrow student loans. I'm not giving you my taxes. I'm not helping you out. Dave Ramsey said, you should be able to do this on your own. And of those 2.2 million people, let's say they each have 2 kids apiece. That's 4.4 million children. How many of them are not going to go to college because they got screwed? And they're not going to achieve the things they want in life?
Yeah, good question. It's all a little too one size fits all to me,
Well, that's my point, is how many lives are destroyed by just making a stupid statement.
Right.
As opposed to, you get a guy like Sam Cedar who's being very responsible. Let me just explain it. He's not telling you right or wrong or good or bad. He's just explaining what happened. As where Dave's telling you, nope, it was terrible. It wasn't going to work. The loan thing was a bad idea. Don't vote for people that actually try to deliver on their promises like this. I mean, that's what he's saying. I mean, you go to
well, then spending all the time talking about how that promise is undeliverable,
Yeah, but it's happening.
Right.
And you can bitch about it all you want, but it's like, what was the other argument? He hadn't made another argument. Well, actually, he did, and we'll do this in the next video too. But I'll the argument about, well, this was all about the election. I'm like, yeah, that's why we elect them. We elect them to do the shit we voted that they said they'd do.
And then they want to come back and show us how they did the thing.
Yeah,
or the other side wants to show that they didn't do the thing, right? Regardless.
It's the stupidest thing. Okay.
Right.
I hired you to do this job. Then you come up to me and say, well, I did the job. And I said, well, you only did that because you want to keep your job. Yeah. That's how this works.
That's how jobs are.
I ran on this and I did it. Please elect me again. Well, you only did it so we'd reelect you. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. You know what's nice about that? I'm running on this now. You know I'm going to try and do it so I can get reelected again. I'm predictable.
Which isn't the worst thing in the world.
Oh my God. Yeah.
At least not where that kind of thing is concerned,
Yeah, because you know what everybody loves, Lacey? Unpredictable people. Unpredictable people. They're the best. I mean, if I'm walking down the street, I don't want to be walking down the street with somebody who I know is going to be reasonable and cautious. I want to walk down the street with somebody who might throw me into traffic or stab me.
Right.
That's what I want. That's what everybody wants. Nobody wants to be with a reasonable person. That's not. People don't like reasonable. Ask any child in the world. They'd rather a parent that they don't know what the parent's going to do ever. Mom and dad could not show up for 5 days. Mom and dad could go freaking insane. Nope. Children love that. Yeah, bullshit. If you've had a pet, the pet expects, this is when you feed me, this is when we play, this is when we hang out. Pets have a schedule. Yeah, they have a schedule. And when you're not consistent, what happens? They get fucking pissed. And they start breaking shit. Or they poop on the carpet.
That happens with kids too, minus the pooping on the carpet.
Yeah. So it's just, anyway. I love Dave. He's so great. He's such a douchebag.
Well, maybe we'll find a little bit more of Dave to talk about next time.
Oh gosh, we have a ton. So yeah, we'll do that next time.
All right.
Yeah, good work today, and we'll catch everybody later. Check out your blog. Where can they check you out at your blog?
Right, I'm at mysensewithsense.com. Also, you can look for workshops and courses on that page as well, because I do some personal finance coaching. So if you are looking to get yourself in order and systematic and get your mindset right with money, come check it out and contact me. Duncan, where can people find you?
They can actually reach us on our email. It's gossipfinancead at I think it's outlook.com. It'll be in the link. Yeah, if you have financial questions or concerns, you can definitely hit us up. I might contact you personally. So let us know. But other than that, we'll catch you next week, and next week we'll do a fun episode. So this was fun too. This was good. This was fun. But next week will just be playtime. Just playtime.
To come back for that.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.